Welcome to SocialView, an interview series sponsored by Market Dialogues, a digital marketing agency specializing in social media and mobility. In SocialView, we discuss the world of social media with some of the best minds in the field. Today, we are speaking to TA McCann, a serial entrepreneur who is the founder of Gist, which was recently acquired by RIM. Gist automates the delivery and presentation of the most important information about the contacts in your professional network. It eliminates the noise from email alerts. Tia, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So let me start off with a question that a lot of marketers grapple with. We see a lot of companies using social media to drive multiple activities. They drive very mundane activities like contests and stuff to something even more integrated, which is actually getting some product feedback and driving their product life cycle. So different swath of activities that marketers drive. What are some of the challenges companies face in implementing the right social media strategy at your company from your perspective?
Well, I think in one sense, the social media strategy is sort of like the internet strategy of 1995. So at some point, we're picking little pieces of the overall business to implement social media. Certainly most people think of it as a marketing function at this point. But I think of it as every function. There's going to be a recruiting function, a support function, a sales function, a product development function, which will all have social involved in them at some point in time, and probably more and more, the same way that it's happened with the internet. So that's sort of one challenge, is it's not just a marketing thing, it's an everybody thing.
Yeah.
Yet now if we look at the marketer specifically, which might be considered the lead, which I think in the internet the same was happening. The internet was first. We need a website as a marketing presence was the first thing that happened. You ended up with all these different tools. And then you started to think about, well, what is the website supposed to do? Are we supposed to sell things there? Are we supposed to market it? And you ended up with a collection of different tools, which has probably taken, I would say, not even standardized yet.
Yep.
When you think about an overall web presence, there are different tools for all the different aspects of it, and sometimes they tie loosely together.
Yep.
But integrated approach toward having a web presence doesn't yet exist, and it certainly won't for social for a while.
Mm-hmm. Do you also feel, though, that the role of a marketer in that context, because now that the application of these mediums are there in different aspects of business, do you think the role of marketer as a lead is changing dramatically or evolving into something more than just being a marketer and being able to kind of crawl all these different things in one place?
Well, I think that, yes.
Okay.
And I think the other interesting thing for marketers is in the past they have not been particularly technical.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the people who are at the forefront of this are getting more and more technical. Their ability to find tools, to try tools on their own, to see if they fit, how they fit together, how they overlap. And so you're seeing sort of a new generation of marketer, I think, that understands much more deeply analytics and technology plus analytics and a very rapid iteration cycle of how do I stitch together 40 different tools in order to get an advantage over my competitors.
That's a great point. All right, moving on to a very related question, which was, and given what Gist has been doing, or the kind of business that you guys are in, how do you see the intersection of social media and mobility as it stands now? That's one. And second is, how do you actually see that, where do you see that going with regards to that intersection?
Yeah, well, I think the first part in general, more things are moving mobile, right? We now have access to our social graph with us at all times. Assuming you're connected, which I think you are, and assuming you got your phone with you, which I think everybody does.
Yeah.
So social and mobile is really exciting. It's one of the reasons why we are excited to be acquired by RIM. We can now bring the power of Gist and the concepts of Gist to 80 million people, growing at 5 million a quarter.
Yeah.
So the space is growing very, very rapidly, and we being in that is interesting. So some of the key scenarios I think that lead toward the trends is, now I have my social graph with me all the time. Means I want to be able to access groups of those people and message with those people in more interesting and dynamic ways. So if I'm at a bar and I'm checking in on Foursquare, I want to know who else is around me now so that I can get those people to be there, and they don't all have to be on Foursquare.
Right.
I know who they are, and I may know where they are, and I can easily message to them in the appropriate channel to say, let's meet up for a beer.
Right.
And so I think this blend of social, mobile, and local is really interesting, because the devices are getting more connected and more local in that sense, knowing where they are at any point in time. The ability for me to expose either aspects of me, like I like to ride a bike, or I like to drink beer at this particular place, and exposing that selectively to different groups of people, either the people who kind of know me who are near me, or people who know me really well, or people who have similar context, location is a context, or likes to bike is a context, and blending those three things in dynamic ways, I think is really exciting. And I'd say another big piece is that layering on top of that is the ability for the phone to be an alerting mechanism. So alerts, push notifications, and the more of those that come, you need to also sort of filter that through a priority algorithm of some point to say, what should I pay attention to? And clearly just is in the space of thinking about people and companies in my network and who should I pay attention to and why is a conceptual piece that lots of apps are going to do, and just is one of those kind of leading applications.
A lead up from that is if you look at this intersection in context with business, let's say a business using this intersection in the most effective way. One of the things that tested is a lot of companies have started to use mobile phones and mobile apps for events, where they provide an opportunity for people to network, experience the event through the mobile app, etc., etc. But do you also see that application being taken forward and evolve into something that's how social media has evolved? For example, you build a community of people on this mobile app, and that community you pretty much do the same thing that you do on social networks, where you increase the size of the community and then you mine it for business purposes. Have you seen that thing or that kind of evolution happen in any part of the world yet?
You see bits of it here and there. I mean, depending on the conferences, you'll see the sort of who should I meet at the conference that I don't already know, which is a form of this sort of business social networking. And by mining different data sources, you can start to identify why I should know them. Either we have lots of context, we used to work together at the same company, we have lots of friends in common, we care about the same things, etc. That data all exists out there, and different apps are doing selectively good jobs of combining them to create that sort of go and find this guy at this conference. I think the other unique scenarios is being more prepared for the meetings that you do have. So this ability to walk into a meeting and say, when was the last time I talked to you? Who introduced us? What are you all about, and how should we work together? Like, we're all putting lots of that social signal out into the world, and you need applications that can prepare you both for that face-to-face interaction, but also remind me of other face-to-face interactions that I should have, which is more to the event scenario.
Cool. All right, one final question before we wrap it up. So, again, coming back to social media specifically, what are some of the key trends that you're seeing in the marketplace with regards to adopting social media for business? And then if you can actually compare and contrast that to some of the activities, some of these initiatives that you're driving at GIST or RIM, that'll actually help us in understanding that concept as well.
So I'd say that the key trend is this integration of social across many different functions, across the entire customer engagement cycle. So whether that's sales or marketing to sales to customer to support, I'd say one is integration or understanding of people across the whole continuum. You know, you can think about it in a support context. If you get a support ticket and one guy's got 100 followers, another one's got 10,000 followers, how should you treat those two people differently? And if those followers are contextually relevant to the space that you're satisfying, how should you treat them differently? It doesn't mean one's more important than another. You just want to treat them in a different way. Maybe get back to them on Twitter, which is a channel discussion. Or it may be after the incident, would you mind telling your friends about it? These are just nuances of sort of marketing, but in this case, a support thing or a sales thing. So I'd say that's one key trend of blending social across. Two is injecting social into the applications that you use already. So if you look at Gmail, GIST in Gmail, Zobni in Gmail, Reportive in Gmail, Google People in Gmail are all effectively competitive products which are trying to add broader context to the interaction. Inside Salesforce, this is happening too. Inside lots of applications, you're bringing a social fabric into that. So there's the need for it, and there's actually the practical implementation where people are bringing these apps into other apps, or the merging of applications. I think is really interesting. And you'll see more and more of that around people and companies. So people are one aspect, companies are another, but integrating that with other applications and blurring the lines between the two, I think, is a key trend.
Cool. All right. Before we wrap up, any final word for marketers out there from your perspective?
Well, I think they have to get much better at listening, and there's a variety of tools to do that in the process by which they're listening. They have to make it personal. So it's not okay for the CMO to just say, hey, we hire a guy to do that.
Yeah.
The CMO or the VP of marketing or everyone in the organization has to personally get better at the process of listening and understanding how people are building a brand and how their personal brand fits into the corporate brand, whatever they have. I think personal branding is a really interesting concept because a lot of people who are senior level marketers haven't done that yet. And the more that they understand how to build their own personal brand, they'll understand the people who I call new influencers out there who are building their personal brands. They'll understand how to interact with those people. So understand the tools, build your own personal brand, and interact with social across the organization as opposed to just in the marketing context.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Tia, for joining us. This has been extremely helpful.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.